Ever wish you could have an apple pie and an apple crumble at the same time? Say hello to my apple crumble pie. Delicious caramelized apples inside of a crisp butter crust with a crumble topping. Hey, you're watching Preppy Kitchen, where I, John Cannell, teach you how to make delicious homemade dishes to share with your family and friends. This apple crumble pie won't make itself, so let's get started. First off, I'm whipping up my favorite butter crust. This is gonna have 2.5 cups or 300 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm putting this right into my food processor. Pop it on, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, in you go, and 1/4 cup or 50 grams of granulated sugar. Pop the top on and just pulse it up to combine. Now it's time to add 1 cup or 226 grams of cubed cold butter. So cube the butter, keep it in your fridge until you're ready to use it. So add this in. And now we're gonna pulse it until we have like little lentil-sized pieces. Just to show you what it looks like a rough mixture. Small little crumbles in there. I have a big bowl of ice water and 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice at the ready. I'll probably be adding about 1/4 cup of ice water. We'll see how it goes. Pulse as you drizzle. And the 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. If you're using the food processor, after you pulse, as you take your finger off, it should kind of just do this. If that doesn't happen, go ahead and add a tablespoon at a time while you pulse. Okay, it just did it. You know this is ready because you can take a handful out very carefully, place it in the palm of your hand, squeeze it together, and it holds its shape, mostly. So this is now ready to roll out. Perfect. Dump the mixture out. This looks like it's a crumbly mess, but it's perfect. And all I have to do is press it together. I like to use the pastry mat just to work this a little bit by compacting it. And then I don't need this, but I will slide it, fold it over on itself, and then slide it, just like that. Okay, and then fold it over again the other way. And you can see it totally brings it together. You're taking these little like crumbles of butter and sliding them to smash them into more of like a flake of butter, which is what I want. That's good. And now you could either wrap this in plastic, or if you're using a pastry mat, you can kind of just put the pastry mat into the fridge. So flatten it into more of a disc shape. I'll just put it in the fridge like this. This needs about half an hour to come together, although you could make this like a day or 2 in advance and just keep it in the fridge. While this chills, we're gonna make our easy and delicious filling. Into the fridge you go. To make the filling, you're gonna wanna peel, core, and slice 3 pounds of apples. Today, I'll use Granny Smith, but I often use like some Honeycrisp, some Fuji. Really depends on what I have and like what I feel like. Totally up to you. All right, let's get to peeling. If you have any helpers in the kitchen, now is the time to ask them to do something for you. My little toddler helpers are a little too small for this at the moment, but as soon as their hands can safely do this, they'll be helping. In case you're wondering, 3 pounds or 1.36 kilograms is about, 9 to 10 medium small apples. And this will fill up a 9-inch pie dish. If you want to make a larger deep dish pie, then you'll add a couple more apples in and everything else will stay the same. Time to cut the flesh from the core. And we're gonna give these a nice even slice. You want the apple pieces to be roughly the same thickness so they all bake at the same time. Time to slice them up. Let's think about 1/4 inch or less. And as you slice, no, yes, use your knuckles as a guide. You don't wanna cut your fingers off. Pie is not worth it. If you saw my We Planted an Apple Orchard video, which you can click up here for, you'll know that we planted an apple orchard, but those apples are not ready yet. And we also have a ton of old apple trees on the property, but they're also not ready yet. So these ones came from the store, but I'm very excited to use some of my delicious apples from our own farm. Okay, take a breath. You deserve it. Now it's time to finish prepping this. For me, apples, lemon, and cinnamon go hand in hand. I love the brightness of the lemon juice, the warmth of the cinnamon, and the sweetness of the apples all mixed together. So I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of freshly squeezed lemon juice over this and just let it sit there. It's not really to preserve the color of the apples, it's to add a bit of flavor in here. You could totally skip the lemon juice if you hate lemons for some reason, so it's somewhat optional. Now we're adding 2/3 of a cup of granulated sugar. It's about 133 grams, I believe. And then it's time for the spices. I'm keeping this really nice and simple. I'm adding half a teaspoon of cinnamon. In we go. And I think just a touch of nutmeg can't hurt anyone. So a little pinch of freshly grated nutmeg. If you wanted to, you could definitely add some of your favorites, allspice, cardamom, ginger, whatever you'd like. But now it's time to give this a toss. So get everything coated in spices and sugar. It's like a delicious salad. Here's the deal. I'm gonna take this onto the skillet and start cooking the apples down because I wanna release a ton of juices from them. They have too much juice in there and it's gonna make your crust like really soggy. No one wants a soggy crust. What we wanna do, take the juices, cook them down into a caramel, fold that back into the apples, and then we can bake that in our pie. It's gonna be delicious. So right now, we're gonna go onto the stove and get a big skillet out. Let's go. Add a 1/4 cup or 70 grams of unsalted butter into a large skillet over medium-high heat and let it melt, and then we'll add those apples in. Okay, after your butter melts, add in all those apples. We're gonna cook this over medium-high heat for about 2 minutes while moving things around. Want to give it a nice start. The smell is beyond amazing right now. You've got to make this recipe. Hello. After your apples have cooked down for a few minutes, you'll see they released a ton of juices, and then it's time to add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch in. Just sprinkle it in. Sprinkle, sprinkle, little star. And mix it in. Now it's time to reduce to medium-low and cover. This will cook for about 7 minutes, and this is a cover for those pans, in case you ever wondered. I get a lot of questions about these discs. Cover it up. While that's simmering down, go ahead and melt 1/2 cup or 113 grams of unsalted butter in a small-ish bowl. It's for the crumble, and it needs to melt but cool before we use it, so just have it ready. My apples cooked down for 7 minutes, and now it's time to strain everything into a bowl, because I want to separate the apples from their juices. There we go. This goes back over your burner. Now, try and get all the liquid out of your apples and set these aside for a minute. Now, this liquid gold is gonna go back onto the stove and we're gonna cook it down until it bubbles and thickens. It's gonna smell amazing, but you'll definitely notice the change in consistency when it's ready. So let's go. Pour the liquid back in and get it all out. Now we're gonna place this over medium-high heat and just stir frequently. You don't want any part to burn. It should cook evenly. You'll see it bubbling almost right away, but it really has to thicken up before it's ready to take off heat. Oh, it's getting close. You can see that it's taking much longer to come back together. Okay, one last swipe and you can see it's really taking a while. It's kind of bubbling together as opposed to flowing together. Dump your apples back into the bowl and then transfer this very much more thickened liquid into the apples. And you can see this consistency is like some caramel amazingness over here. Give it a toss because we want to distribute all of this so it's even. And now this needs to cool down. It has to go into our pie crust, but this would just melt that pie crust right away. So let it cool down. In the meantime, we're gonna make our crumble and then roll our dough out. To make the crumble, I'm adding 3/4 cup or 90 grams of all-purpose flour into like a medium bowl, 1/2 cup or 100 grams of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and we're just gonna mix it up really well. You can either make a crumble my way with melted butter, or you could use the cold cubed butter and cut it in. It's totally up to you. Both ways are fine. I'll be drizzling in that 1/2 cup of melted and cooled unsalted butter. And now I'm just gonna use a fork to mix it in. If your butter's too hot, it can melt the sugar a bit and you'll form one big glob. If that happens to you, just break it up with your hands into crumbles. It's like basically impossible to mess this up. So I love it. So my crumble's all mixed up, and as you can see, it looks like a crumble, but it's super soft right now. It'll continue setting up as we do the rest of the elements for this recipe, and when it's ready to use, we'll just crumble it on top. So don't worry about it if it seems a bit soft. Set this aside, and now it's time to roll our pie dough out. Take your pie dough out of the fridge. One of the reasons I love a pastry mat, because I'm ready to go. Sprinkle with flour. If it's really hard, which it very well might be, let it sit on the counter for a few minutes and just soften up. You don't want to roll out rock hard butter crust because it'll crack. Okay, check the bottom, a little bit more flour. And now it's time to roll it out. I'm using a French rolling pin, which is tapered. One of the things I like to do is roll the side out first, just like this, and then roll the middle out. Once your pastry dough yields to the touch, it's ready to roll out. And like, just don't worry about the cracking that much. It happens. I would much rather have pastry dough that cracks than is like completely falling apart because it's too warm. That's not fun. It's important to keep flouring your surface as well as the top of the pastry dough, flipping it around and just moving it. You don't want it to stay in one place for too long. Okay, I have plenty for my pie. So to transfer your pie dough, roll it onto your rolling pin, or you can quarter it as well, and then re-roll it back in. That easy. Don't try and press the dough in. You want to push it in from the edge. It's because we don't want to stretch the dough, and we also don't want to make it too thin. It needs to do a little bit of work and hold our pie together. Now I'm going to trim the edge. I want a little bit of overhang because I'll do a very simple rustic edge detail on this. For the pie, we're going to fold the edge in. So honestly, this right here is good enough. You don't have to do anything else, but you can just use your thumbs and index finger to make that simple pinched detail, which gives you a little bit extra. I love this. Look how pretty that is. I'm so excited already. Okay, we're ready to assemble, and this is an optional step, but I like to brush the edge with an egg wash. It gives you a beautiful golden look. And to make an egg wash, all you have to do is mix an egg with a little bit of water or cream, usually like a tablespoon. Brush the edge with our egg wash. Now it's time to add our filling in, and I did snack on this just a little bit. It is mind-bogglingly delicious. You must make this. Add that in. This pie really gives you the best of both worlds because you have the butter crust and that amazing crumble topping. Use your spatula just to smooth out the top a bit. Don't go crazy, but it's nice. Back to our crumble, which I pointed out before was really mushy. Now it's totally set up and crumbleable. Isn't that nice? And now we can add this to the top of our pie, just crumbling as we go along. It's nice to have small crumbles, not big ones. This is ready to pop into the oven, but I do not like handling pies by themselves because it's kind of unwieldy. I never want to crush anything in there. So place it onto a baking sheet. I have one more pie making tip for you, and here's the deal. This bakes super slow. This bakes right away. So we need to shield the outside so it doesn't burn to a crisp by the time our center is cooked through. To do that, we're gonna use tin foil, aluminum foil. Fold a long sheet in half. And this is a lot of foil, but you can reuse this so many times. Wrap it around your pie. You can just tear it a bit to fasten it. And now we're gonna fold loosely over the edge. So just crumple it up, like make little pleats or folds on top. And take a look, you wanna make sure the foil is not pressing against your pie because it gets stuck. This is ready to go into the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. Then reduce the temperature to 350 and bake an additional 50 minutes, 50. After baking the pie at 350 for 50 minutes, I removed the tenting and then baked an additional 15. I wanted the bottom to be nice and golden, just like the top was. That's how you know the pie is done. If you're using a glass pie dish, it's gonna give you a little bit longer of a bake time compared to a metal one, just FYI. All right, now we're gonna cut this open, plop some ice cream on, and have a bite. If you like this recipe, check out my Apple playlist. All my favorite Apple recipes in one playlist for you. But now it's time for a bite. That was so good. The apples are cooked to perfection. They melt in your mouth and have so much caramel flavor. I love the butter crust, but that crumb topping is beyond. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next Apple video.